Welcome to Your Family's Health, the program that focuses on healthcare issues with unique and different modalities for taking charge of your health today. Experts talk weekly with our continuing roster of guests from around the country and right here in Nassau County to keep you up to date on the latest health issues and trends. Take care of your mind, body, and soul. Spend the next half hour with the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and get on the journey to better health.
Hello and welcome to Your Family's Health. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College. Today you're going to learn about the science of health psychology. My guest today is Dr. Heather Hausenblas, a health psychology expert, scientist, public speaker, and author. Her research focuses on how our health habits affect our well-being. In particular, how our diet, exercise, sleep, and supplementation affects our overall health. She is also the CEO and founder of Wellness Discovery Labs, a health behaviors research company, and the co-author of Healthy Moves Journaling, a wellness company that focuses on small changes for big health improvements. Dr. Hausenblas, welcome to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So it's good to have you. Very interesting topic. Can we start by just you giving us a little bit of a snippet of the fundamental principles of health psychology? What is that?
So, great question. And it's a field where we take kind of the general notions around psychology and our behaviors and apply it specifically to health behaviors. So, for example, how your diet, your exercise, your sleep, your stress level is all related to your overall health.
So what made you get into this field of work?
Great question. I was fascinated actually as a young age with people's behaviors, and I was always watching people to see what they did and what they didn't do. And as an athlete in high school and college, I actually thought that I wanted to become a performance or what's known as a sports psychologist and help athletes and professionals to get the peak performance. But I quickly realized after getting out of being an athlete that I became fascinated with physical activity and exercise and why most people didn't move very much, and it really was terrible for their overall health. So I began to study the psychology behind that and eventually branched out into our other health behaviors, because you really can't look at exercise in isolation and not take a look at people's diet and how they're sleeping as well, because they're all related. So for example, if you're not getting a good night's sleep, then the next day you're probably going to be in a worse mood. You're not going to have the energy to exercise, and you're probably going to eat some of those unhealthy foods. So everything is really related. And I was fascinated with kind of these small little habit changes that we can make to lead to a healthier, happier, more productive life.
So how does health psychology differ from other branches of psychology, or is it the same?
It's different, but there are kind of this overarching, aspect with the psychology. There's very similar theories that we begin to see across different realms of psychology. But in this area of psychology, it focuses specifically on our health habits and our health behaviors. And those are largely related to, what we're eating, how much we're moving, how well we're sleeping, our stress, how well we can handle, pain, for example. So it delves specifically into these areas and the research behind it and why people do or do not do these types of health behaviors and how we can get them potentially to do them more.
So there's a psychology behind me wanting to have those greasy foods and that fried chicken and potato chips and all that I love to do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there's the psychology.
There's the psychology behind it, whether it's related to, social habits or your actual environment or, the cravings. We really are creatures of habit. And, and I was just lecturing to my students this morning, and I said, if your close friends don't exercise and they don't eat healthy and they don't sleep well, pretty much guaranteed, your chances of doing the same things are about 150% as well. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into this. And interestingly, if you ask most people, they know that they need to get a good night's sleep. They know that they should be eating their vegetables and their fruits, and they know that they should be exercising. But the knowledge is not enough to change people's behavior. And that's where the psychology comes in, to really try to understand how we can get people to do these health behaviors and do them consistently.
Interesting. So what are some of the key factors that influence our health behaviors? Some of the keys?
A lot of the keys, or some of the keys, really relate to, our environment. And when I say our environment, I'm talking about both our physical environment. So that could be, from the house that you live in or the apartment that you live in, to the city, to the community, even coming down to weather, for example, because we know that, if you live in a cold environment, then you're less likely, for example, to exercise outside than if you live in a warmer environment. And pollution is also related to health. So we have the physical environment, we have the social environment. Right now, what unfortunately what's going on is we see an isolation and a loneliness pandemic really that is going on. And there's a fascinating study that showed that being socially connected is probably one of the best things that we can do for our health. And to kind of put it into perspective, people who report that they're lonely or socially isolated are more likely to die what we call prematurely. So not live to like that average age of about 79. And from a health standpoint, it's equivalent to about smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So what I mean by that is that people who report that they're lonely, from a health standpoint, it would be about the same as them smoking 15 cigarettes a day from a health standpoint. So we fail to realize that our social connections are so important for our health, and that falls under health psychology, but also that these behaviors that we do or we don't do, oftentimes these small little habits really have a great impact on our overall health and how they are all related. And what I like to tell my students is, and I'll ask them, did you get enough sleep last night? And the way that I tell them how you got enough sleep or not is, did you wake up with an alarm? And, about 90% of the students will lift their hand that they woke up without an alarm. I said, well, if you woke up with an alarm, that's telling you that you didn't get enough sleep, because you should be just waking up naturally. And that's your body saying, okay, I've had enough sleep and it's time to get up. And if you haven't had enough sleep, pretty much the next day, your mood's going to be lower. So you're probably going to be in a worse mood. You won't be as happy. You certainly are not going to be as productive. You're going to have a difficult time focusing in lecture. And you can see the students that are nodding off. You're going to be less likely to exercise, and you're also probably going to not eat as healthily as you should. So the point is that all of these health habits are related, and we can't look at them in isolation. And it's very difficult for people to change their behaviors. So that's where we take a look at the psychology and what we can do with individuals to try to get them to change these behaviors and become healthier.
I'm wondering how the COVID pandemic, I know a lot of people were locked in their homes. How did that impact their health choices? Do you think people move more towards obesity, or do you think people underate? Because I know eating is very social. So how did you think the pandemic affected people in their health choices?
The largest way we feel from a research standpoint that affected people was from the social aspect. So, we were isolated. We had to be, separated from other individuals, and people really suffered from that. And I can still see the effects of this, a couple of years later, with even the students that I'm lecturing to and the struggling that they are having. So that was a really big aspect, was the lack of social connections that individuals have. And unfortunately, it's going to take, I feel, many years for us to recover, from these aspects.
Yeah. So can you describe the role of motivation in health behavior change? How does motivation impact?
So it's a key aspect, because people want to oftentimes change their behavior, but they lack that motivation. And the question is, okay, what is motivation, and how can we improve or change it for individuals? And It's difficult when we take a look, for example, at New Year's resolutions, and most people will set New Year's resolutions. Typically, in the top three, it's related to diet. Oftentimes diet and exercise, and by about mid-January, most people have resorted back to their old behaviors. Mm-hmm. So it's a challenge to get people to consistently change and to stick with that motivation. And what we find is that it's difficult for people to go in and change like a whole host of health behaviors all at once. You want to focus on something, stick with it for a certain period of time, and hopefully it will become a habit. What the science tells us is that on average, it takes people about 2 months for something to become a habit. Now, there's a lot of variability. For some people, it's as little as 2 weeks. Some people, it's as almost 300 days. But pick something small and stick with it. Try to hit that two-month mark and then add something onto it. So I tell people, for example, if you want to start to drink more water, have a goal and a simple health habit of first thing in the morning when you wake up, have that glass of water. So you set a specific time, a specific goal, and you track it. We do know that tracking is really, really important for people, and to realize that we're only human. And if you miss a day or two or even 3 of your goal, that's okay. Hop back on as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think that's very important, to not be discouraged and just jump right back in there on your plan. You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and today you're learning about the science of health psychology. My guest today is Dr. Heather Hausenblas, a health psychology expert, scientist, public speaker, and author. Her research focuses on how our health habits affect our well-being. In particular, how our diet, exercise, sleep, and supplementation affects our overall health. She is also the CEO and founder of Wellness Discovery Labs, a health behavior research company, and the co-founder of Healthy Move Journaling, a wellness company that focuses on small changes for big health improvements. So, Doctor, another question that I really want to know, particularly for me and for those that are listening, how does stress, that's something that we all deal with from time to time. How does stress affect our health, and the strategies and how we can use, just to manage what we deal with and go through on a day-by-day basis? How can we manage that?
It's a great question, and one that people really struggle with. Yeah. And we all experience stress, and it's part of life, and it plays a key role. But what happens when people are experiencing stress often and at high levels, then your body is pretty much in overdrive. And we do know that people who are in chronic stress situations, they're more likely to get sick. They're not going to sleep as well. They're not going to perform as well. So it's a really critical aspect of how we can get people to lower their stress and get it to a manageable level. And what I might perceive as a stressful situation, somebody else might not. So there's this individual variability that comes into it. What we do know is, coming back to our health behaviors, if you eat well, if you get enough sleep, if you exercise, these are all known ways that people can actually reduce their stress. And kind of a buzzword that we hear a lot that has really become more popular since the pandemic is self-care, and making sure that you are doing self-care and that it's not a selfish thing. And self-care can mean many different things to many different people. For somebody, it might be taking time out of the day to exercise. For somebody else, it might be, I need to reduce the time that I spend on my phone or plugged in or on social media. For other individuals, it may be, taking a close look at what they eat, or maybe meditating or breathing, but it can encompass a whole host of things. And we do need to state that self-care is really important, because it's going to help us manage our stress and not look at it as something that is a selfish thing to do, but something that will make us a better and healthier person.
So you mentioned changing one single thing. If we can change one thing in our lives that would help our health, I would say maybe drinking more water or going for a walk. You said it takes only, 2 months to change?
On average, 2 months of consistently doing it, and you see that it turns into a habit for most people.
Does that one thing change health outcomes of an individual? just one changing one thing. Can it change? Can it be that impactful that it can change someone's health? Just
It
to do
can
one
just,
thing? Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing. Is it going to, cure somebody of everything? Probably not. But our health habits build on one another. And when you can make small changes and stick to it, it usually leads to other things. Because, for example, individuals who tend to regularly exercise also then tend to eat a little healthier, tend to get enough sleep, tend to have their stress levels a little bit lower. So there is this almost like a contagion effect that occurs. And if you can have one win and one success with a health behavior, then you can begin to continually build on that.
So these health changes, this health psychology, is this something that can be applied across the lifespan in children and adolescents and older adults as well? Definitely.
You're never too old to change something. And really unfortunately what happens is our behaviors, whatever may be, tracks over time. So what I mean by that is that typically what you're doing when you're a child turns into what you're probably going to be doing when you're an adolescent and a young adult and an older adult. So what's really important, if there are parents out there, is that you want to ingrain positive health behaviors when we're young, because they do track. What we do know, for example, if young kids are eating a lot of vegetables and fruits, well, they're probably going to be doing that also when they're young adults. So there is that tracking that goes on. But also, if somebody who's 65, for example, and it has not been someone who's exercised throughout their life, and they start to do it when they're 65, well, that's going to have health benefits for them. So it's never too old to start to take a look at, your overall health and try to do small little changes for improvements.
How can health psychology affect, I'm thinking of chronic or addictive behaviors, chronic illnesses, but particularly addictive behaviors that really are very impactful in someone's life, like smoking or substance abuse?
We tend to say, okay, we have to improve these behaviors, but sometimes we can take, whether it's a negative addiction or what we call a positive addiction, to an extreme. I think, for example, of exercise, and we know that exercise is really good for us, but people can exercise too much and actually become addicted to it and be exercising for many hours a day. So it's important for people to realize that, yes, we need to take a look at our health behaviors, but also you need to do them in moderation. And when we're taking a look at, addictions like, smoking or excessive drinking as well, those are behaviors that we do, and they're very difficult to in a sense treat and get people down to a level. Sometimes people need to abstain altogether from it, or try to have drink within the guidelines that are out there, and that is quite a challenge for individuals. And there's no one thing that works, but interesting, some research has shown that when you pair a healthy behavior with an unhealthy one, there's a disconnect that goes on, and it reduces the unhealthy behavior. So for example, if there's a smoker, and smokers tend not to exercise, and you put them into an exercise intervention, their smoking actually decreases significantly because there's a mismatch between those two types of behaviors.
So could healthcare professionals utilize some of these tools so that we can provide better care for patients?
Definitely. So, for example, if someone is suffering from some type of a condition or some type of a disease, what we do know is engaging in these health behaviors is going to help oftentimes with the recovery period. I think of cancer, for example, and there's a fascinating body of research showing, for example, with cancer patients, that when they're exercising, even during treatment or after, it significantly helps them not only get through the treatment, but maintain a stronger overall level of health, and then they're less likely to relapse. So it's important that we pair these things together.
So it's good to pair the therapy for psychology and related to the health piece. Can I go to a psychologist, for example, and just get therapy on how I handle my health, for example?
Yes, there's actually a field, there's clinical health psychologists. And that in large part is what they will do, is that they will, assess overall not only the unhealthy, but also the health behaviors, and provide a path and guidance for how to change them.
So I would just like you for a moment to think of or share some stories that you have found to be very impactful in your career, that you saw positive or negative outcomes. Give us a little bit of a illustration of what you see.
To try to get people to be consistent. And oftentimes people and myself, we think in these terms of that it has to be something really big. And oftentimes it's the small things. So I come back, for example, to some research that I have done and others have done with journaling, which is a very simple, easy, inexpensive technique that people can do where you may track what you're eating. We know that the simple fact of tracking what you're eating from breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks, it creates that awareness, and it actually results in weight loss when individuals do this. We know that expressing gratitude, which is simple as like listing a couple of things that you're thankful for every day, actually puts people in a better mood and makes them more productive. And I like these types of techniques like journaling because they're not expensive. They don't take a lot of time. You can do it pretty much anywhere, and they have really great health outcomes for individuals. Often I will tell people that are stressed, I'll say, well, why don't write your worries away. So list what is stressing you out, what you can do about it, and then regroup at the end of the day and say, what is your stress level now? And what kind of successes did you have in overcoming some of that stress?
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and today you're learning about the science of health psychology. My guest today is Dr. Heather Hausenblas, a healthcare psychology expert, scientist, public speaker, and author. Her research focuses on how our health habits affect our well-being, in particular how our diet, exercise, sleep, and supplementation affect our overall health. She is also the CEO and founder of Wellness Discovery Labs, a health behavior research company, and the co-founder of Healthy Moves Journaling, a wellness company that focuses on small changes for big health improvements. So, Doctor, you talked a little bit about journaling. Have you seen health benefits from someone just writing down in their journal gratitude, maybe just sentences of gratitude? I'm grateful for small things. I'm grateful for waking up. Or, how does that benefit a person, just journaling and writing down some of these things that they're grateful for?
Right. It seems like something so simple. And oftentimes it's the simple things that tend to have the biggest impact. And it gets people focused on it and setting up a plan. And when we talk about, gratitude or expressing thanks, it can be as simple as just listing a couple of things or actually writing out complete paragraphs and complete sentences. It's whatever works for the individual. It's kind of like taking a time out from what's going on in the day, having you focus on something. And we do know that when you focus on the positive, then it's going to have you cognitively begin to reframe things in a positive light. So what I do love about the journaling is that most people, really anybody can do it, and that it's not something that requires you to change your clothes or buy a certain type of membership. It's simple, it's easy to do, and you can do it pretty much anywhere that you want it. It only needs to take, a minute or two if that's what you want.
So in my journal, is it okay to put that I had potato chips and I had all of these bad foods so that I can look back on it and say, tomorrow I'm going to stick back to my positive incremental change that I made a week ago so that I can get back on track? Is that the whole notion of this journaling?
Yeah, 100%. You have to be honest, and you list exactly what you've eaten. And that will give people a chance to look at it, to reflect, and to set up, the plan for the next day. And when I tell people we're human, if you want to have your cake one day, have your cake and certainly enjoy it. But, don't eat cake for all 3 meals of the day. So it's in moderation. We need to enjoy our lives as well. And if you enjoy that, then certainly do it. But, moderation and keeping track is really key for individuals.
I think so. So where can someone find out more information about you and what you do? This is great.
Yeah, they can check out my website, which is Wellness Discovery Labs. And I also write articles a couple of times a week on different health related topics that are all based on science. So what I do, I say I do the research so you don't have to. So I will take a look at what the research says and then write an article or a post for individuals. And that is posted on Substack.
So tell me, should I be setting short-term goals for health or long-term? Is it, like, should I do baby steps in this health, idea, or should I make long-term kinds of goals? Both.
It's both. So you have, let's say, a long-term health goal, and I'll just throw it out there. Maybe it's you want to live to be 100. That might be your long-term, health goal, and then you set short-term goals in between that. So maybe it's okay. I want to make sure that I'm going to be standing more during the day and doing more light activity, or make sure that I get the 7 hours, of sleep every night. So you set these short-term goals, and it's really important for people to go back and reevaluate on a consistent basis. There are some great journals out there for tracking behaviors that individuals can find, for example, on Amazon, which provide a great tool for people, because tracking and writing down and being aware is really, really important. And I do encourage people, if they can, to actually write it down, because it tends to be better than just typing it on there, because the whole process of writing tends to stick more with individuals.
So if you had to give me a couple of words to leave the listening audience with, when it comes down to the science of health psychology, right, what would you say?
I would say track consistently and know that you're going to have setbacks, and that's okay. Try to jump back on that train.
Get back in there and keep going. Go forward. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Heather Hausenblas, a health psychology expert, scientist, public speaker, and author. Her research focuses on how our health habits affect our well-being, in particular how our diet, exercise, sleep, and supplementation affects our overall health. She is also the CEO and founder of Wellness Discovery Labs, a health behavior research company, and the co-founder of Healthy Move Journalism, a wellness company that focuses on small changes for big health improvements. We hope you stay healthy and continue to do this great work that you're doing. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much.
This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College. We want to thank you for listening to this week's edition of Your Family's Health.
We'd like to get your feedback on your family's health. Send your comments by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu. Podcasts of today's show are available on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This program was produced at the studios of Nassau Community College in cooperation with the nursing department. Join us next week for another edition of Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.